Hello there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and thanks so much for stopping by the channel. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to do the treble crochet stitch. Now my tutorials are done using the US terminology, but this stitch is called the double treble in the UK terminology. To follow along with today's tutorial, you're going to need a yarn weight of whatever you've got handy and a hook size that works with your yarn weight. I am using the King Cole Timeless Chunky in the color Stoat and a 6mm or J crochet hook here from our friends at Frills Crochet. Now this is one of the basic crochet stitches, and as you can see, it is quite tall and worked just on its own. It creates a really lacy looking fabric using just a basic stitch. Now this stitch is taller than the double crochet, and you see this stitch used a lot in lacy crochet tops for summer. So it's a really great stitch to know, and if you want a project that's going to work up really quickly, then this is the stitch you're going to want to consider. So let's hop on into learning how to do the treble crochet stitch. So when we're starting the treble crochet stitch, we're going to start it the same way we would any other stitch with a slip knot on our hook. So grabbing the tail end of your yarn, pin it down, wrap it around your fingers, cross it over itself, and then while you're holding tension on the working yarn, flip your hand over and then pin it down. Then take your crochet hook or your finger and put it under the first strand, over the second, and then pull that second strand all the way under and out while you're maintaining tension with your left hand, and pull up with the hook and down with your hand holding the yarn tails to tighten your slip knot. Then grab your working end and tighten your knot to your hook, and it should be capable of moving back and forth like this. So now we're ready to create our chain. When you're creating a chain for treble crochet, you want to determine how many stitches that you'd like to have. So in my sample today, I want to have 5 stitches, but I need to add 3 chains to that for my turning chain. So if I want to have 5 stitches, I need to have 8 chains. Okay, so let's do that together now. So we're going to yarn over and pull through the loop. That's 1. Yarn over and pull through the loop. That's 2. And we're going to continue until we have the number of chains that we want. And for me, that is 8. So we've got 3. All right, so now that we have our 8 chains, we're ready to start our stitching. When we're working our treble crochet, we're going to start in the 5th chain from the hook. So the yarn on our hook never counts as a chain, and we're going to start counting in this first chain here. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I'm going to place my finger right next to that 5th chain so I know where I'm going to be working my stitch. Now to start your treble, you're going to yarn over your hook twice. So we're going to go 1 yarn over, wrap it again, that's 2. Now I do recommend holding on to those yarn overs with your finger to help maintain that tension, and then we're going to insert our hook into the center of that 5th chain. Now that we're in the chain, we're going to yarn over hook and pull up a loop. Now at this point, you should have 4 loops on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. So 1 and 2. There should be 3 loops on your hook. Then yarn over and pull through the next 2. Then yarn over and pull through the last 2. And that's your first treble crochet completed. And now when you work into that 5th chain, those skipped 4 chains here are your first stitch. Now, if you have a stitch marker handy, I like to put a stitch marker into my top of my turning chain, so that way I can find it later to work into, and so I work into the correct chain. So let's do this treble crochet in the next stitch together. So we're going to start with yarning over twice. So yarn over once and twice. I'm going to hold those yarn overs in place, and I'm going to insert my hook into the next chain. Yarn over and pull up a loop, and you should have 4 loops on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2. 1, 2, 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over and pull through 2. 1, 2, 2 left on our hook, and then yarn over and pull through the remaining 2. And that's your next treble crochet completed. So I'm going to work a few more trebles here, and I'm going to show you what we need to do to start our second row. So there are our 5 treble crochets. And so we want to work our second row. So we're going to have to chain up 4 to get to the height of our stitch that we need. So this is our chain 4 turning chain. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and 4. Then we're going to turn our work. Now this number might change depending on your pattern, but the standard is you're going to be using a chain of 4 when you turn. Now because we have that turning chain, it usually counts as your first stitch, which means we're not going to work into that very first stitch. We're going to start working into this second. So we'll do a treble crochet into the second stitch, yarn over twice, and into the stitch under both loops. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2 to complete. All right, so I'm going to do 2 more stitches here, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to work into that turning chain. So in the previous row, as you saw, I put my stitch marker in that top of the turning chain because it will help me find it later. So I'm going to move that out of the way now. Now, if I had stopped here, I'm going to have this little bit of yarn hanging out, and I'm not going to have a nice straight line going up my work. So we want to make sure that we are taking whatever precautions needed to remind ourselves that we're working into the top of that turning chain. So when you look at your turning chain, if you turn it towards yourself, you can see the V's from the chains that you created. This one here is the one at the very top. So that's where we would like to work our stitch. Now, if you find that your chain is a little loosey-goosey here after you do it, you can always work your turning chain into that second chain, and that's what I often do. And it just helps tighten up the sides of your work, but you don't want to do it if it is causing the work to become inflexible on the sides. So it is something you have to play around with, but the standard is to work into the top chain here. So we're going to yarn over twice, and then we're just going to insert our hook through the center of the chain. When you're working into that chain, just like when we're working into our foundation chain, we want to make sure we have 2 loops on our hook. And it's kind of hard to see when you have your turning chain, but let's separate the strands here, and we've got 1 here and 1 here. Okay, and that will help make sure that you don't have any big gaps in your chain after you work your stitch. And then we're going to work our treble crochet as we normally do. And there is our little swatch. That's how you do the treble crochet stitch. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help you. Please leave them in the comment section below. And what have you made with this stitch? I'd love to hear. I know that I've made a top in this and it was super quick. So I'd love to hear what kind of projects you have or will use this stitch for. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. If you like free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, The Loopy Lamb, where I've got over 200 free crochet patterns, many of which have step-by-step video tutorials. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.